Askets Explanations, Part 5. Introduction. Contact Reports Volume 1.
Plejarische Kontaktberichte, Gespräche.
Block 1. Page number res. 341 to 345. Date/time of contact. Several. Translator res. Dyson Devine and Vivienne Legge. Date of original translation. July 2009. Corrections and improvements made. N/A. Contact person.
Asket.
Chichi and Billy.
Translator's notes.
An important message for the reader of this document. Einwichtig Nachrichten den Leser dieser Schrift. We, Dyson Devine and Vivienne Legge of GaiaGuys.net have been given permission by Billy Meier, Figure.org, to make these unofficial, preliminary translations of figure material. Please be advised that our translations may contain errors.
Personal explanation from September 14, 1964, Murali, India.
Askets Sally still provided many further explanations which, however, one is not permitted to mention. They deal exclusively with past events, the significance of which must be kept secret into the distant future. How these connections affect the future was explained to me, and I am therefore orientated about it, even if not in all the details. But it became clear to me, after Askets' explanations, that very many events of the past are very important for the future still to come, and for that reason their course is not allowed to be influenced by the revealing of facts through which certain matters within the events could be negatively changed. My own reason tells me that my silence was justifiably required and that I must hold to that in the interest of all humans. On the other hand, I also have no right at all to want to play do-gooder, or someone who wants to change the world, in order to change events for better or worse, by means of some sort of intervention, as a result of my acquired knowledge. I must hold to that, as it relates to the world and the humans, exactly as I do, as it relates to my own life, which, with very many events, I know in advance. I can also not change this, because I know that very evil times will come for me and I will have to withstand all sorts of miserable things. I know that these coming events must happen and I must go through them, that I must overcome them and that I may not simply avoid them, because I now know that these events hasten towards me at determined times and will bring me pain, suffering and need as well as hate and slander. That which must occur must not be changed, because otherwise the required course of evolution would be disturbed. For that reason it is a rational duty, in respect of all creational laws, to never influence the future counter to its determination. When a human knows this future in the course of the years of my life, it has, however, also become completely clear to me that it is not good for the human when he knows his future. If he knows his future, then, in his egoism, he moves in the direction of wanting to influence the future in accordance with his own will and thereby creates enormous unhappiness. This is because he wants to avoid certain coming events which will bring him suffering or need, and so forth. I had to learn from my own experience that the human succumbs to very evil conflict with himself if he knows his own future. It is especially the case if he becomes aware of negative things in his future. Out of egoism, self-pity and other motivations, the human who has not had this explained to him resists the coming, negative events if he knows them. He tries to evade them, to avoid them and to not have to confront them. The human also fears these kinds of coming negative events if he knows them in advance. But none of that is permitted, because, already, just through that alone, through fear, the coming event will change and will evoke wrong effects. The human is still not capable of coping with, and fully understanding, the truth. And he is not yet mature enough to know his future and to approach it correctly. For that reason the truth must be rewritten prophetically for him, as in equations, in order to make him think independently, whereby he slowly finds and recognizes the truth himself. For that reason the human must be spoken to in prophecies and parables, and also, for that reason, the events of the future must be explained to him in veiled form. Everything must be explained and be presented in a rewritten form, whereby the human is stirred to thought and begins to search. Only through his research does he find possibilities of an interpretation, and, in that way, slowly recognizes the truth. Were he not spoken to in parables and prophesies, and the explanations of the future not presented in circumscribed and somehow mysterious form, then he would make no effort to do his own thinking, and he would also want to change the future, because, if it were all presented in open, unparaphrased form, he would indeed know all of this in every detail, with which he truly could not cope. I know from my own experience that this is actually the way it is. Many things were explained to me regarding my own life before the events actually overtook me, and I know just as many things about my life which are yet to happen to me. I have learned that knowing these things in advance requires a great deal of energy, and that this kind of knowledge can lead to the edge of madness. I often shivered with great terror when I knew that, yet again, a very bad incident unavoidably approached me, and very often I was on the verge of simply throwing everything in and preparing an end to my life. But with time I learned that I had to master everything within myself if I wanted to do justice to life. I slowly learned to overcome the ghastly terror or angst and to correctly adapt to everything. But I am convinced that I would certainly not have been able to overcome everything without the loving help of my extraterrestrial friends. To know the actual truth about the future of one's own life is insane, because the human is not able to cope with this truth. He must quite simply be shattered by it. But, if that is not so in my case, it is only because a superhuman strength, as well as the teachings of the truth, as well as the conquering of myself, and, not the least of it, an appropriate outside help, have fundamentally changed me. Therefore that happened with me, and I did not earn all my success. I certainly never would have done that alone, all by myself, because, insofar as consciousness is concerned, I am certainly still much too primitive, too stupid and too underdeveloped. Through my own initiative alone, I never would have learned how to know my future, how not to influence it incorrectly, and how to approach it correctly. And today, if I feel no more angst and fear for all the coming events of the impending decades, that is also absolutely certainly not something that I earned on my own. I know what has to come, yet, for that, I feel no more angst or fear. I know that I may never try to change or influence the future merely because I know this future. This knowledge also conquered the angst and fear in me. Certainly I have not become unfeeling through this curbing of angst and fear, quite the contrary. My feelings have become even more sensitive and move along extremely fine courses. Therefore, if an event of the future which is known to me draws near, then my feelings begin to act, and often I become quite uneasy. It is also that way now, because I think about my future in the coming year, about an event that will be unavoidable. In 11 months I am to step into a further episode of life, the entrance to which is to be very hard for me. I now know the precise place and the precise date that this passage, over into a new episode of life, will take place. I know that now, and I know that I am to lose my left arm in a bus accident. I know all that, and I know that only 11 months remain for me until then, if I do not calculate the time precisely to the day. Yet what will be, I perceive no more angst for that which comes. Only my feelings perform their insane play.
Askets' explanation from February 14, 1953 in the desert mountains at the Dead Sea in Jordan. Written down with Askets' memory assistance and through her apparatuses, on the 14th of September, 1964 in Murali, India.
Through the various trips into the past, you have now obtained the required cognitions to confidently cope with all the truth you have to face up to in the trip into the past which now follows.
The intention is to lead you back to the year 32, where you are to witness, there and then, those events the records of which have been handed down to you in false forms in the New Testament. This is required because you can only fulfill your mission when you know the actual truth in very great detail. But this is truly quite different from the way it is presented in your scriptures. It is, in no way, a ...
Damn. The year 32 would indeed have to be the year of the crucifixion of Christ. Or?
I speak of that. That is correct.
I have to determine that your manner of expression has indeed changed a lot in the last few days. It is no longer so strongly orientated towards religion as it was at the beginning of our acquaintanceship. Holy smoke. Is that so surprising? I indeed almost went mad and have seen so many things that I can no longer process them. I was a slave to damned religion and this idiotic Christianity my whole life long. Now you suddenly turn up with your mad friend and drag me out into outer space and far back into various past epochs. Everywhere I have to see and recognize that the damned religions are only mean and filthy machinations of mad or power-greedy humans, and that everything is only a quite damned idiocy for the purpose of the exploitation of us dumb commoners. And now you even want to drag me back to the time of the crucifixion in order to actually prove to me the goddamned idiocy of these power-mad swine. Then I am still supposed to keep quiet there, eh?
Askets' eyes widen and she looks at you with alarm.
Jitchy, I advise you to talk to Askets somewhat more politely, otherwise I will punch you in the nose. You were indeed the one who practically forced himself on us in order to travel through the times with us and to become acquainted with the actual truth. If, as a consequence, you want to spin out, then you have yourself to blame because, during your life until now, you allowed yourself to be misled by the false religious teachings. If you have now finally recognized the truth and if you are furious because of that, then you must be furious with yourself, because the blame lies totally with you alone. Had you once quite reasonably contemplated everything, then various things would have had to occur to you which would have allowed religions to appear in the correct light for you. Therefore you also do not need to simply condemn religions and stamp them into the ground, because the religion is not, in and of itself, wrong, if it is evaluated and utilized with knowledge. The mistake with all of them is only that each one was transformed into a cult by irresponsible humans and is ruled by delusional dogmas which lead humans into error. But in itself each religion possesses many good and correct things which point many people to the correct path and are able to help them in many sorts of matters. Religion, in and of itself, is therefore not bad. Rather only that which is made of it in association with the unreal dogmas and many erroneous teachings of irresponsible, delusional believers and prophet sharks, and so forth.
I will wring this bloke's neck if I come into his time.
You will quite nicely leave that be, because, in my opinion, the bloke, as you call him, is a very worthy and extraordinary human. I already know who you mean. And I will beat the living daylights out of you if you even say only one bad word to him. In no way can he himself do anything about being branded as a son of God, and still even greater nonsense. Because, according to everything that I know today, he was used, without his own will, for the founding and maintenance of a new religion. Manuel must be a wonderful human and extraordinarily wise and clever as well.
He speaks the truth. Jitchy.
Please excuse me, I simply could not do anything else. Everything has simply been too much for me. Perhaps I also do not understand the connections correctly. I am really very sorry, please excuse me.
It is all right. But now look at these articles of clothing from my homeland. You should put these on now and cover them with these cloaks.
I recently brought these 6 cloaks with me out of the year 32 in the foreknowledge that I would need them, because we will mix with the masses during this trip into the past. As we already have twice before, we must once again wear native clothing. But unfortunately I only have these cloaks, for which reason you should wear the clothing from my homeland underneath. Man, if we take off the cloaks we will indeed look like angels.
That would be so. Yet no grounds exist to take off the cloaks.
Therefore we will also not be conspicuous. So, go now and get dressed. Also take these head coverings with you.
Explanation from September 14, 1964. Cheery and I changed clothes and then looked like some sort of inconspicuous figures from an ancient time. Only if we had removed the cloaks and taken off the peculiar head coverings would we have been conspicuous. In the floor-length, silvery white, shimmering and richly pleated, billowing dresses, we looked like angels, almost exactly as they were portrayed in the religious picture books which I had leafed through at various times. What we still lacked was the long hair that these depicted angels always had. Unfortunately, our haircuts were short, as was the norm, yet hidden with the head coverings.
So, you look quite good.
But now listen to me very closely, because I still have several very important explanations to give to you two now, which you must keep to yourselves. So and now we will go back into the time of J.M. Emmanuel,